What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we're coming to you live from a couple of places on the internet. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X/Twitter, Instagram. Maybe you're listening later on the podcast platform of your choice. Wherever it is you're listening or watching, we appreciate it. And also, we want to send a little prayer out there right at the top of the show. A little prayer for Pete's internet, which is not doing that great.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm just warning people. We're hoping to keep Pete with the show, but he's coming in at what, like 10 frames a second, something like that?
Of all the religions there are to be a part of, I'm glad that we worship at the hem of Pete's internet.
Yes. Also, you got a little herky-jerky there, Justin, so this is great. Maybe I'll take this show alone. I guess we'll see what happens. It's fine. I'm excited about that if that does happen, because I love the guests that we have on tonight. I'm very excited to talk to them about all of their projects. First, folks, we're going to bring in, they are the creative team behind Archie Comics Judgment Day. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Aubrey Sitterson and Megan Hutchison.
We made it.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hi, welcome. Very excited.
Thank you, Justin, for supporting.
Oh, man, I forgot
Archie
to wear any sort of Archie Comics shirt today.
I know, you're failing. Justin's now the favorite.
Finally! I knew I'd win with fashion. It's always been my place.
Good job.
So let's talk about this book, Archie Comics Judgment Day. This comes out tomorrow in stores everywhere. This is the first of a new premium format line for Archie Comics. So swaggy print, got to get it in stores, got to get it in print. You can get it in digital as well, but you're just not going to get like...
Do it in print.
Yeah, do it in print. It's an oversized issue. It's 3 issues long. And the basic plot is Riverdale is even more in hell than it usually is. Archie is kind of the only one left, and things go even further downhill from there. There's obviously a lot more to it, but maybe, Aubrey, to go to you first. How did this come together, and how did this end up being the kickoff of the premium format thing, or was that just part and parcel as it went?
Yeah, so when Jamie Rotante at Archie reached out to me about this project, the Archie Premium Event Series was part of it, right? That was part of the pitch from Jump. And it really came from a place of, the last few years, Archie has, as everyone's really well familiar, done a slew of one-shots and anthologies, and, especially in the horror space, stuff. Right? There've been a ton of fantastic one-shots and anthologies they've done, but they were looking to get back into doing something a little bit longer, limited series. And they had the idea for Archie as a demon hunter. And after having worked together on Archie versus the World, which is it's with Jed Doherty, my frequent collaborator, but similarly gonzo to this book, they came to me asking if I would be interested, specifically with an eye towards utilizing this Archie Premium Event Series. And it's something that we've embraced at every step of the way, right? And it's not just, Archie's doing limited series again, right? Plenty of companies are doing limited series. What makes it different is that everybody involved with this book, right? From myself and Megan, obviously, but colorist Matt Hearns and letterer Jack Morelli and everybody internally at Archie has been fully committed to making this. So, and this is the reason I said to buy it in print, right? The idea is to make something that is worth plunking down your money for, worth taking home and holding in your hands, and not just a comic book to plow through as quickly as you can so you can make it through your weekly stack, but something worth ruminating on and coming back to, and really centering the goal of making an art object, right? Something that, in addition to being a compelling story, which we hope it is, that every time you turn the page, you're confronted with, whether it's a true spread or not, you're confronted with a spread that takes your breath away, something that stops you in your track, something that incentivizes and rewards rumination and study. And I'm incredibly fortunate to have been joined by Megan in this endeavor, because she got it from Jump, and it's been our constant goal throughout working on this project to make it worthy of this Archie premium event series.
Well, I think that's a nice segue to turn it over to you, Megan, in terms of the art. How does this format affect you? How does it affect how you are approaching these pages?
I mean, it's been really fun because they kind of let me do whatever I want, which is awesome. And I love drawing demons and monsters and gore. I'm a big horror fan. I'm a big metalhead. So this has been a project where they just kind of cut me loose. And the nice thing about working with Aubrey as well is like, we have like, you know, similar styles, or, you know, like it's easy for us to communicate. So he just kind of writes cool shit for me to draw because he knows like my aesthetic. So it's been really fun. I mean, when editorial comes back and they're like, make sure that you have more blood in this panel, then you know that you're doing a good project.
Wow. Whoa, we thought it was way too much. What are you talking about? Well,
Never enough.
That brings up never enough. It feels that way. I wanted to say, like, it feels like from both the writing and the art that the panel is just what we're looking at, and everything extends. The evil extends from a story, like a writing perspective and art perspective, so far beyond the panels. And that's just a feeling. Can you tell me if I'm crazy for feeling that, or if that's an intention? It just feels like we're a little peeking through a crack in the door.
Is the evil here with us tonight? That's what.
Yeah, am I evil? I guess what I'm getting to.
No, I mean, you're not, Justin. You're not crazy for that.
Great. End of answer.
Wow, well done, sir. Well done. Yes, well done.
So I think what you're picking up on is exactly what we're describing, exactly what we're talking about, right? The goal, you know, I'm a Howard Chaykin adherent, right? It comes through in how I approach working in comics and scripting and laying out and thinking about not just individual panels, but the page, right? And Megan and I talked extensively about the approach to the book and making sure that it is not just a situation where, you know, what we didn't want to do was take a story and say, okay, well, we got 3 issues, so let's split it into thirds, and then we've got 20 pages per issue, and then we got to figure out how each of these breaks into pages, and then how each of these individual pages breaks into panels. When people do that, what you end up with, in my opinion, is not a comic book, but a illustrated teleplay or an illustrated screenplay, right? And that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make a comic book, right? We're trying to make something that, you know, and the page we're looking at, the spread we're looking at right now is a perfect example, right?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's outrageous stuff, right? But every single one of these spreads was ideated in a similar way, right? And such that it's not just, oh, we're showing you individual snippet. You know, they're not storyboards, right? Like that's, too many comics look like storyboards, and they read that way. They read like discrete moments that you put into order, like a flip book or something, and then you get the story that way. That's not what we're trying to do. The central storytelling unit, and this is the Chaykin influence, right? The central storytelling element of a comic book is the page. And if you're not utilizing that, if you're only utilizing panels and you're viewing the panels as the central storytelling element, you're missing out on a whole level of complexity and expression that is possible through comics and only possible through comics.
Megan, can I ask you a question about this page? We have a couple of other pages I wanted to show, but I was very curious about this one. And I'm going to slightly describe it for anybody who's listening on the audio podcast later, but there's a 2-page spread. In the upper left, we have Dilton, I assume, doing some sort of experiments. It says chapter 1. You follow the text sort of on an angle from the top left over to the middle right. But the question that I wanted to ask you, Megan, is it almost feels like the art is working in the opposite direction, because certainly your eye is drawn to the, I'm pointing at this like anybody can see what I'm pointing at, to the chapter 1. But given that you've got these fly creatures and demons that are taking everybody, it almost visually starts from the top right and heads to the bottom left. So talk about those two things working against each other, I guess.
The most specific question.
I don't know. I think it's interesting because, it's interesting how you read a page, right?
Yeah. We'll teach your listeners to prefer the podcast version.
Yeah, exactly.
Tune in for the stream, dorks. Yeah. You're missing
it. No, that's actually a good question because, like classic, layout on a comic book page, you're supposed to lead the eye through, right? It's supposed to make a zigzag. And I did this on purpose, and it's kind of the opposite because it's disorienting and it's terrifying, and it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. This is the second and third page of the first book. So it was kind of this idea of like just shoving someone in the deep end with like crazy chaos. And, it's just kind of like, get ready, because this is like the ride that we're going on, and it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable.
But now I don't.
Oh, go Pete.
I don't know if this is helping you by getting these nightmares like out of your head and somewhere else, but I hope you don't have to live with this nightmare, because this is just truly it's haunting. It's really impressive what you've done in
now
a very scary way.
You have to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think what Megan's what y'all identified in Megan's spread there and what she's talking about is, it's part and parcel with what I keep harping on, right? Is the idea that, and you're absolutely right, that your eye is drawn to the top right, which is unusual for a comic book page. And that's where your eye starts. But then you're forced to drag back to the upper left and take in the page again in a different way, gleaning new meaning, not just from the art and from the lettering separately, but the interplay betwixt the two, right? And that's the central magic of comics. And that's been our goal throughout, is to really not force, but encourage people to really spend time on each of these pages, because I think that once they do, there's a lot of great stuff to discover, as y'all have just demonstrated.
You sort of spiral in a way down that. I guess in every sense of the word. It's funny, when I hit this page, I was like, oh, Dilton, he's always doing something. I was like, oh, this is much worse and deeper and darker than Dilton. Wow. Really red herring at the top of that left page.
Yeah.
Megan, can you talk about drawing these characters transforming? This is not to keep walking through these preview pages, but like we get a sequence after this in the preview where Cheryl approaches Archie and then she slowly morphs into this demon. So how do you create a continuity there from a character tried and true like Cheryl Blossom into some sort of nightmare Lovecraftian demon?
When we first started the project and I was like doing like the preliminary designs, Aubrey sent me a bunch of samples from Devilman, and what was the other one that you sent me?
A lot of Berserk stuff, a lot of Junji Ito.
Yeah, that's right. So just kind of studying how like the demons kind of transformed in those books, and they still had some of the characteristics of the person in it, because that kind of created the look and the shape of what the monster was going to be, but it's also kind of what about their character would make that. So with Cheryl and her brother, they're twins, so I had them morph into this like one body, two-headed goblin creature with like fiery veins, like
there it is.
Spider person.
It's a nightmare creature.
Ribs,
rib heavy, hungry for ribs. Barbecue season.
I just love drawing ribs. I love it.
We can see the passion. It's
right there.
It's
on the page. It's on the page.
It's hauntingly amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. So it was just kind of like, what about this character? Not just aesthetically
now
what
I
they
can't
look
stop
like.
staring at the ribs.
Yeah. There's a lot more where that came from.
They got me.
Yeah, Pete's hungry. Anyway, Pete, please keep going.
Oh no.
What is it about Archie? What is it about Archie that the Archie universe that really feels like horror is hitting with it so hard? And you were saying, Aubrey, in the past couple of years, it feels that way, and it feels like your book is heightening that. Is it because they're so like innocent at the start? Like, what is it about Archie?
I think that's part of it, right? I think the clear and horrific juxtaposition of America's favorite teenagers getting up to the most heinous, atrocious, just awful, horrific stuff you can imagine. I think that's a big part of the initial appeal for people. For me, coming in and whether it's working in horror on Archie Judgment Day, or this is the second time I mentioned it, but Archie versus the World was Jed and my kind of Mad Max and Fist of the North Star riff on Archie Comics. And I think that regardless, like what's so powerful about the Archie Comics cast of characters and why it's so fun to work with them and do these kind of genre explorations. One, to Megan's point earlier, I am continually shocked by what they let us get away with, right? There are many times in these scripts when I've written things and think, oh, that's certainly going to get edited out, and Megan drew it.
Like
it's in
more.
There. Yeah,
more.
exactly. So like one is just the support and faith demonstrated by Archie's editorial team, and that goes all the way up to the highest echelons of the company.
Have you met the demon that runs Archie that's really pushing all
No, I mean I get emails, but he's so busy. It's really but
great work.
The other thing I think is key here is that despite the fact, I think a lot of people they like to make the joke about interchangeable characters within Archie, and Betty and Veronica, and one's blonde and one's dark haired, but anybody who's familiar with these books knows that's not the case. And that to me is one of the most impressive things about the Archie catalog, is that there are, going back 80 some years, there are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of unique, instantly visually recognizable characters with distinct personalities and backgrounds, and that is catnip to someone who's given the amount of freedom that we've been given to come in and kind of figure out how they fit into these different genres. And so that's kind of like the two-pronged explanation, I think, for why horror resonates so much with Archie.
Well, to take that a step further then, and maybe this isn't exactly getting into spoilers for the issue, but how far can you stretch a character like Archie before it's no longer Archie? Which
we're sure as shit gonna find out, Alex. Yeah, we did our best really to push as far as we could absolutely push to their breaking point. That really was, Megan and I talked about this early on, and I think that this is what Archie wanted from us. This is what they commissioned us for, right? To really see how far we could push this, because it's, even amongst the previous Archie horror releases, this is different. It's darker. It's bleak. It's and bleak in an existential way too, right? Obviously, there's lots of bloody ribs on display. We covered that already. But also, there's a hopefully there's a palpable sense of dread and horror and true existential horror that comes through with all this stuff that I don't know if people have often seen expressed in Archie Comics before.
So first issue is coming out tomorrow. Obviously, most folks haven't read it. We've read it. It's awesome. But we've already gotten teases of issue 2 and issue 3 through the solicitors text. So talk to us a little bit about what people can expect from the series as a whole. Anything in particular that you'd like to tease? Megan, anything from you?
Oh, I want to spoil shit so badly. No, I mean, it just, to Aubrey's point, it keeps getting darker and darker. And what I really like about this book is it isn't just a straight up horror book. And one of the things that we did talk about is it exploits the characters, their personalities, and what they represented, it exploits them, and it keeps just kind of hitting that as hard as possible and really pushing that to the limit. So I think that's something to look forward to, but I'm trying not to give anything away.
That's good. Our imaginations can fill in some gaps.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and it's just, it gets wild. Sorry, my dog is pawing at the door. It gets darker and bloodier and demonier.
Good words.
As it goes on. Yeah. Thank you.
Aubrey, what about you? Anything that you want to tease or?
Yeah, I think what people have to look forward to in Archie Judgment Day is their second read through.
Ooh, that's great.
Because truthfully, again, we structured this thing to be dense. We structured it to be complex and to be multi-layered. And I don't think that most of those things that we've layered in are necessarily going to come through on the first read, right? Especially with the speed at which many people are accustomed to reading comics. So after you've read it the first time, I think my hope is that people will feel compelled to go back and visit it again and see.
Demonically.
Yes, but in an infernal nature. Yes.
Yeah.
And to revisit it again and see what they missed and see the stuff that had been layered in from the very beginning that maybe wasn't quite as clear until they got to the end.
You're saying read the whole story and then go back once you've
absolutely. Yeah, I hope that's what people do. That's very much the intent. And that, I think that's part and parcel with the Archie Premium events line, right? Mm-hmm. Is that this is not a standard ephemeral disposable comic book periodical, right? It's got higher production values. There's deliberate thought and care put into every page from every member of the creative team. And it's been ideated this way from everybody involved up and down at Archie to be something worthy of serious deliberation and consideration.
Well, let me ask you about that. This is a broader question that includes this premium format but goes bigger to the comic book industry. There's been a lot of discussion about getting folks back in comic book shops. There's an interview with Dan Buckley recently where he was talking about, like, we got to get the Wednesday Warriors back. And from my perspective as a consumer, as somebody who goes to comic book shops, it does feel like there are these things like Archie Premium, a better quality paper, a better quality printing. You've got Distillery is putting out their oversized books that are very well printed. You've got the Red Band books from Marvel as well that are like comic shop exclusives. A lot of different pushes there. Is this the way to get people back into shops, or just a way to get people back into shops?
Megan, do you want to go first?
No.
Okay. Everybody out of the way. All right. Now it's time for Aubrey to tell you what's wrong with comics and how to fix it.
Here we go.
So the short answer is yes, right? The longer answer is I think that, better printing and different formats and stuff like that, that's all fine and good, but those are surface level and superficial fixes, right? To my mind, the way to get people back into comic shops is to provide something that they can't get anywhere else, right? And I think, and that goes back to the Chekinian approach to comics, right? Comics are not pilots for your TV show. They're not a failed screenplay. They're not a stage play that you've kind of broken down into panels as opposed to being in scenes and acts on a stage somewhere. They're their own thing. And there are experiences that comics can give readers that other mediums cannot. And it is all baked into that approach I was discussing earlier in terms of the page, right? Creating an art object, creating something that people, and that's why, early on you were like, you can get it digitally. And I interrupted you to say, no, you shouldn't though. And that's why. Right? Not just to help out our comic shop retailer friends who we love, and everybody loves the experience of going into a good comic book shop, of course, right? No, obviously you want to support the comic book shops, but the reason you want to get this book and books like it in the physical version is because you want to hold it in your hand. You're not going to be able to replicate the experience of turning the page and being confronted with 2 pages worth of images, right? Whether it's one giant spread or 2 distinct pages, you're not going to be able to recreate that through a tablet. You simply cannot, right? And things like guided view or like endless scrolling, that switches it to a completely different medium because you are abandoning the use of the page as a narrative and storytelling device, right? So to my mind, the way you get people back into comic shops, the way you get Wednesday Warriors back is you provide an experience that they cannot get elsewhere. For decades, the old bon mots about what comics can do that film and TV can't. One, unlimited special effects budget. Well, guess what? CG throws that out the window. That's not a thing anymore. We don't have that, right? We cannot leverage that anymore. Then it became, continuity. Well, you liked one Spider-Man book. Here's 36 of them every single month, and they all tie into each other. Well, guess what? There's 86 Marvel Cinematic Universe TV shows on Disney Plus right now. So people are getting that itch scratched elsewhere too. If we want to appeal to people beyond just spillover from folks who didn't get enough of whatever corporate IP that they're interested in through other things, whether it's movies and television and video games and lunchboxes and whatever, if we want to appeal to people as comics, we have to make things that are first and foremost comics and succeed on the metrics that only comics can succeed on. I'm getting evangelical.
I was going to say the way to get people into comic book stores is to put you in front of them.
Just send me to their house.
I'll
solve the problem. Yeah, we'll get people in shops.
Just
I feel like I need to go right now. I'd probably close.
as someone
Wait till tomorrow.
as someone who's read this comic, as I was reading it, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to get to the shop and get this, because it sucks reading it. You can tell, having it in your hand and kind of getting it at the store, it's going to be a better reading experience for sure.
Yeah, and I didn't clarify this earlier, but it's also, the book is scratch and sniff, so you can smell the ribs, right?
Oh, the ribs.
Good.
Pete
They're
will be
Korean
able to
barbecue
make this-
flavored.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I was wondering.
welcome.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Absolutely.
Spoiler alert. Ultimate
That's
spoiler alert. Before I let you go, anything else either of you would like to plug? Megan, anything else you want to plug, or is Judgment Day the main thing right now?
Judgment Day is the main thing right now because I can't talk about anything else.
All right, fair enough.
All right.
Aubrey, what about you?
Judgment Day is the thing. I've got new creator-owned stuff in the works. It's plugging along. If you want to hear about updates as they're available, go to veryradcomics.com and sign up for my newsletter. veryradcomics.com. It goes out once a month max, so it's not going to be clogging your inbox or anything.
Awesome.
Nice.
Cool.
Both of you, thank you so much for coming on. Congrats on the book.
Yeah,
I'm terrified
congrats.
to read the
Thank
next
you.
couple of
man.
issues.
Can't
Appreciate
wait.
it.
Thanks for having us, y'all.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Great
All right.
talking to you.
Take
See
care.
you guys.
All right, there we go. Once again, the book is called Archie Comics Judgment Day. It's out tomorrow in stores or
man.
this week in stores. Either way,
Worth it for the art alone, for sure.
worth it for the art alone. I have to admit, I'm a little bummed. I've been working on getting my one-person show into comic book form for like weeks now, so I guess I'll just throw that out.
No,
What?
just use the whole page, Alex.
Use the whole page.
Get your one-man show out there. Tell us more about it while we have you here.
Oh, sure. It's called Alex Zalbin, A Life in Podcasts.
Wow.
Oh, wow. The podcast medium translates super well.
I start off as an old version of myself, and I look to the audience, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see you there.
You're talking about your current self.
Yes, my current self. It is my current self. Who, anyway,
I'm
we have
surprised
another-
you're giving away all this gold right here, because this is just...
It's just a preview. It's like preview pages. It's good.
Uh-huh.
Check out that book. Why don't we bring in our next guest? She is the creator of the amazing Plain Jane and the Mermaid, which is in stores everywhere now from 1st, 2nd. Ladies and gentlemen, Vera Brosgol. Vera, welcome.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
My blurry friends.
So excited to talk about this book. This came out earlier this month, so it's been out for a little while. What has the reaction been like? What was it like finally seeing it in stores and getting to see it out in the world?
It's been nice. I actually went on tour before it was out, so there was a little bit of secret commerce going on, but it was really, really great. Mostly just seeing it in children's hands because it's been read by mostly people over 40, which is
Right.
nothing wrong with that. But the ideal reader for me is like a chubby 11-year-old girl, and then finally seeing those
Right.
reading it. And there's this one girl who got it and read it 3 times overnight and was like watching it, and then she got all my other books, and I like spent the whole day talking to her, and it was really, really great.
Oh my gosh.
Those are my guys. Like that's who I was. So that's been precious.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Just to lay out a little bit of the plot for anybody who doesn't know about the book. So it is about this girl named Jane who her parents have passed away. She's inherited their money. She wants to marry the most handsome guy in town and ends up instead on a little bit of an adventure involving some mermaids and other creatures under the water. It gets dark at points, I think, but at the same time, it is this beautiful, wonderful fairy tale about literally and figuratively getting comfortable in your own skin is certainly what I took away from it. I was enchanted by this. I thought this was fantastic. Talk to us a little bit about the genesis here. Did it start with wanting to tell a story about mermaids? Did it start with the idea of tackling the character of Jane? Where did it begin?
It started with selkies, actually, which is an adjacent myth to mermaids. I always loved fairy tales. I always loved folklore from all over the world. I like seeing where things overlap and then where they veer wildly, like all the different versions of the same sort of folktale. And I think mermaids are pretty, apart from the Hans Christian Andersen version, they're generally understood to be little bloodthirsty and evil. But I love the Selkie myths, just for their kind of more weirdness. Not as many people know about them. So I wanted to do a short film about a man who marries a Selkie and brings her home, except she's basically still a wild animal. And she just tears his house apart, and all she can do is bark and eat raw fish. And she looks amazing, but the inside is not what he was expecting. So I kind of like that idea of playing with surface and what's underneath. And that theme kind of stuck with me as I kind of sidestepped to adding mermaids and adding sea monsters and adding my latent terror of the ocean. It just seemed like a really rich playground for like a bigger adventure story that grew out of that original, just kind of like gag, pretty much. I just wanted like a really hot woman barking.
Now,
everybody's dream. I'm curious. Did you grow up in a mean town? Because, man, the townspeople are getting after everyone in every which way.
They're not that bad, but I like a mean parent. I'm like a big Roald Dahl fan, and he does some like really vicious,
terrifying
vicious parents. Yeah, so I wanted to give her a couple of those. I grew up in many towns. My family moved a lot, and I was like bullied pretty regularly every couple of years. I'd have to restart.
Restart the cycle, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of that, but yeah, my parents weren't this bad.
What I like about it is there's the casual sort of meanness of the people sort of drive, especially in the first third of the book, really drive a lot of the action. I think maybe that's what you're talking about, how people are sort of nice, but they can be mean just off the jump.
Yeah, she's very lonely. Like, she doesn't really have peers. She's kind of, isolated by being wealthy, but also, wealthy but not attractive. So she's got some value in the society, but not enough to have any control, not enough to have any independence. She can't actually inherit anything because she's female. Right. So it's this sort of like weird empowered, disempowered spot she's in, where she has to figure out her own way to be happy.
How did you tackle designing Jane in particular? Because like you're saying, you have this character who thinks she's not attractive. She is.
She's so cute.
Yeah, she's adorable.
So I can't draw anything else.
Okay, but like how do you straddle that line where it's like, to everybody else she's like, and it actually in the book she's not at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how it works. It's society that's deciding what is at any given moment, and it's constantly changing. I think plenty of people who are gorgeous hear enough times, and then they just internalize it. I think that's all I needed.
To me, it's in her eyes. Like, you can tell. It feels like people are, putting her out and mean to her because she's so vulnerable. So it's like, she's an easy target in a lot of it. And her eyes are so wide open. You can just see into her soul with every look she has.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Just made her look like a baby. That's a character design shortcut.
This is a big step back, but just tying it to the discussion that we were having with the folks at Archie Comics Judgement Day, where they were talking about making things different for graphic novels and movies. You've done both. You've done pretty extensive work on movies. You've done a lot of graphic novels as well. What do you think the difference is when you're tackling, say, a project like this? Like, how do you approach this, particularly when it started off as a short film? How do you eventually delineate it so it becomes a graphic novel instead?
Well, it spent a little bit of time as a movie pitch, because I was working at Leica at a certain point, and I had this idea, and they were like, pitch us your ideas. So I kind of packaged it. It was a really different version of it too. This thing's been every possible configuration. But I did actually approach this one the most like a movie to anything I've done. I did a lot of the same development steps. Like, I wrote a script, which I haven't always done. I did like a color key. There's a lot of afterward material at the back of the book. We had a lot of extra pages, which was cool because it meant I got to kind of talk a bit about more behind the scenes stuff. So there's a section where I talk about like developing the color script, which is something you do in animation. where you track the
That's
story and the emotions of the characters and what each location is going to look like through color. So we did that for this book, which was really cool. And I think it saved my colorist a lot of time flailing around because we had something to look at.
I just want to take a moment and thank you. This story is just so touching and beautiful. I love the care that you take with the characters and the care that you take with the resolution. It really just, it's awesome. So I just wanted to say thank you for making this.
Oh, thank you, Pete.
Could you talk about the mermaids a little bit? Sort of not exactly opposite of Jane, but obviously they are supposed to be beautiful, but actually are kind of terrible, or at least one of them is pretty terrible. So what went into developing her or them?
I didn't want them to be terrible. I wanted them to be what we all are, which is products of our environment and the value system we're taught. So she and her sisters got a very different one, very, very far from Jane, but not really that different. They were told, the same thing. The most important thing about you is being beautiful and young, and you need to maintain that at any cost. Jane was not instructed to become a cannibal. They got that one, and that's been working for them for a while. But I think of them as just like as much of a victim as she is, and they suffer from it, and some of them get free of it, and some of them don't, which I guess is true of all of us too.
I was raised cannibal, and I'm still trying to get out.
It's working great for you. You look amazing.
I mean, honestly, I would tell you my age, but I can't.
Well, I see the dream house, so I can kind of guess.
Yeah, that's my dream house.
I'm assuming.
Oh man.
Since you started with Selkies, there are a fair amount of Selkies in this book without getting into spoilers, but do you feel like you scratched that itch, or is there more that you want to say about these creatures?
Nah, it's not itchy anymore. It's pretty good. They were fun. I like them a lot. Yeah.
Could you talk about your style a little bit here? Because you've been doing this for a long time and a lot of different places, but there's a lot of different influences I saw jump out of this book, but I'd love to hear you talk about who you were calling on, if any, when you were tackling this.
I always answer the style question by being self-deprecating. My style is me frantically working around my limitations as an artist, which is me, or playing to my strengths. Here, let's spin that for my therapist, who is hopefully not listening.
On the line.
Yeah, I think probably, Disney's kind of a big one, at least from the story perspective. I'm sure it definitely works into the art. There's like a little Easter egg reference to The Little Mermaid with some hair combing with forks. I think in terms of character design, I've been thinking about this a bit more. I think Rumiko Takahashi's a bigger influence than I remember. But I read so much Ranma 1/2 as a teenager, and I can see that in Jane's design. I can see it in a lot of the character design. I've read a lot of 80s manga.
Nice.
That's
I
awesome.
guess.
I'll say
80s manga.
it reminded me a little bit, and maybe this is just because of the mythical creatures and everything, just style-wise, this one in particular reminded me a little bit of Tom Moore's movies, like Wolfwalkers and stuff. Is that something that you looked at all, or not really?
I'll take that as a massive compliment. I definitely watched Song of the Sea when I was writing it, because I was watching every single Selkie thing I could find.
Right.
Also, The Sixth Secret of Kells is gorgeous. Everything they've done is really, really amazing. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Is animation something that you're working on now as well, or is it more focused on graphic novels at this point?
Right now, it's neither, technically. I haven't worked in animation since 2020. I worked on the Pinocchio feature. It's kind of project by project. So I worked on this after Pinocchio, and I have a prose novel I'm working on right now. But I'm still I have a foot in the animation industry, so I'm sure I'll be back in there. It's really nice to have coworkers.
Yeah.
Get out of your house. So I don't know if anybody does that anymore. I haven't done it since COVID. I think everyone's remote now.
Just before we get back to the book for a second to ask you about the animation thing, I know at one point you were working on an Anya's Ghost adaptation. Is that something that's still in the works at all, or is it just...
I'm not working on it. It's
Okay.
one of those things that's like
Okay,
it's optioned.
you're like, pass it along.
It's with Amblin, and I don't know anything, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I know a little bit. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
I like the writer and the producer, and yeah, the team they've put together is really cool. It's all women. They've changed some stuff that I think would be fun, but yeah, I don't think it's worth thinking about that.
All right. Sorry to bring it
I have
up.
no control. No,
Take it off the table.
it's great, but yeah, I try to focus on the things I can affect.
Speaking of that, are you seem to be, so you're jumping into a prose novel now. Are you always chasing that sort of medium break after you've worked in one or another?
Apparently.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seems that way, whether or not it's purposeful.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of to keep. Well, you need kind of a break. I need a break after a graphic novel because they're so physically difficult. So I would do like a picture book and then a graphic novel and then a picture book and then a graphic novel. But I haven't had a picture book idea that I've been as excited about. The next one definitely felt like a prose one. It makes you really hard to shelve though. Like I'm all over the store. It's not great from a career perspective, but I'm really not bored, and it's different.
Well, that's good.
Different brain muscles getting used.
But since you do clearly have this very visual brain working on animation, working on graphic novels, when you're writing prose, how are you picturing it? Are you still seeing it as storyboard / panels in your head, or how are you working it out?
I had to get trained to include what the character is thinking. Like early on, this was a problem where I would assume I would be able to show that somehow. Like at some point, I could draw a facial expression, but that was like a tool that was taken away from me, which is really weird because that's the hardest way to communicate what a character is thinking. It almost feels like
I was gonna say that sounds impossible.
But for me, it's so much easier, and I can get so much. I feel like I can get more subtlety into it than I can just typing. And he thought about his dead father and felt sad. Like that seems unfair, but it also seems really magic. Funny. Like I can just type a thought, and it will be in the reader's head successfully. That doesn't seem like it should work, but
that's really funny. I imagine you writing that sentence and then sitting back and being like, "Okay, it's out there. No picture."
It's amazing. Like usually I do type it into the script, or I type something into the script, but I know there's going to be like the pencils and the inks and the color, and there's going to be all these other versions. It's really weird just being like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This is a
well, that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. I can't wait to read that. Congratulations on the book. It is awesome.
So good.
Good. And I don't know, I would love to see it as an animated movie someday. So hopefully it gets a second life there as well.
That'd be nice.
All right. Thank you, Vera. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, there we go. Once again, that's Vera Brosgol. The book is called Plain Jane and the Mermaid, and it's in bookstores everywhere now from First Second. I loved it. Definitely check it out.
So good.
There you go. We are going to move on with our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions. And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question in the comments over on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X/Twitter, but that's it. Can't do it on Instagram. Sorry about that. Regardless, let's talk about what we're drinking tonight. I will mention we were given a task by our CBC chef, Brett Macris.
Stray Bullies?
Stray Bullies. He curates a drink for us every week. This week he is literally trapped in a Margaritaville, I don't know, theme park or something like that. So it's like make the most outrageous fruity drink you could think of. I did not follow that. I just made myself an old fashioned, but there you go.
Wow. The opposite of his task.
What about you guys? What are you drinking, Justin?
I had something adjacent to that. I had a grapefruit mezcal Paloma, which was very good. And now I've switched it over to a Pils Mafia, the official gear of the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, man.
And Pete?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Land Shark.
He gets us every time.
What a surprise. All right, we got a couple of questions already. Mr. Ollie says, are you guys buying the new TMNT Adidas Master Splinter or Shredder sneakers tomorrow? Clock turquoise looking up. Pete,
What?
Pete, that's a you thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is this also coming with an Eastman and Laird comic book? Because if not, no, thank you.
They
but
broke up
if
a while
so,
ago,
hey, dude, you don't know what you're talking about because the Turtles version of the TMNT Adidas came with a comic. So you goddamn right, I got it.
was that comic made 40 years ago?
I don't know. I haven't opened the package.
Wow. Wait, you have shoes in your comic book box?
Not in one of these boxes, but I have in the other room that you've seen and made fun of, is where I have the collab of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adidas shoes.
Let me ask you, Pete, Eastman or Laird? Choose.
Good question.
Come on, man. It's the both of them that made something great. I mean, you take one away, it's the magic is,
So neither, you're saying? They're both dead to you.
No, don't say that. They're both amazing, and they came together and made something that touched my life, so I'm very happy.
Justin, Eastman or Laird?
I'll go with, I don't know. I don't know which one is which.
Yeah, I'll say Eastman. Why not?
I'm going to say Eastman, too.
Oh, great. There we go. Eastman wins.
He's just
This
the one still working.
is from Michael Eman for Pete, Betty, or Veronica.
Wow, so many choices.
Yeah, I mean, what version are we talking about? We talking about comic books? Are we talking about the TV show? You know what
Answer
I mean?
however you want.
I'll say, this is tough because part of me wants to say Betty all day, every day, but also I want to be like, fuck you, Cheryl's great too. You know what I mean? There's
Make a choice. Pete.
Tony
my
Topaz. How you like that?
Jesus.
It's not audience hem and haw. It's audience questions, Pete.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Schweikler says, what are your co-hosts best at? No chiming in about yourself.
Wow, this is a great question.
Are they
really
trying
plus
to get us
up
to fight
compliments.
each other?
No.
Just
What?
bring us back together. It's a classic
What?
parent trap.
What part of say what your co-hosts are best at would be get us to fight? What are you talking about?
It seems like Schweikler's poking the bear a little bit. He wants to see us tear each other
No,
apart. for
it's
his
the
enjoyment.
opposite.
It's the opposite. It's compliment.
It's giving honey to the bear. That's what we're doing.
Well, obviously, the Zelbatron is the best host. JT Sizzle is the funniest, and I'm insane. And together we make an enjoyable podcast.
Pete, you were supposed to let us say you're insane.
Oh,
Nah,
sorry.
Well, I'll say about you guys, Pete, you probably have the best line on what the people think, except in some rare cases. But I think pretty consistently over the course of our run, everybody's been like, I agree with Pete way more than me and Justin. all the
Shocking.
time.
I mean, let me say, I agree with you, and I'm always like, wow, okay.
Yeah, but you definitely do. You have a lot of
The
other people.
crazy guy?
And Justin, your comedy memory is way better than both of ours. You definitely remember things from the beginning of the podcast, hit them at the end of the podcast. Always very impressive.
That's like a weird muscle reaction. And I would say, I'll boil it down to just a couple words. Pete's the heart, Alex is the engine. Choo choo, motherfuckers.
Aw, very nice. Look at that. Was
What
that
are
poking
you?
the bear, Pete?
It seems like it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's nice. That was the
Michael,
nicest moment on this podcast in literally years.
Michael Tillman says, when should we expect the next team draft? And in light of X-Men 97, could it be Age of Apocalypse theme draft? That's fun.
That's a great idea. It's crazy for us to go from X-Men draft to Age of Apocalypse draft. We're like so far down the pipeline. We are doing another draft in the next, I want to say, couple weeks. So
Yeah, we've definitely been talking about it. We definitely want to do it. We know what we want to do.
We got
It's
to
just-
crank through a couple things. And
Yeah,
then
we have
can
a
get
bunch
back to
of
this,
podcasts
yeah.
coming up. There's some shows coming back and things, but 100%. I don't want to promise the next couple of weeks, but we 100% will do it because that was very fun. Similarly, Kieran Broderick asked, New York Portal show when? Kieran, thank you for bringing this up. I know you're Ireland-based. The problem was, I don't know if you heard about this, but Pete shook his tatas on the New York side of the portal, and I had to shut it down, unfortunately. So
Yeah, but we are trying to do a New York show, though. We are trying to make that happen. So
yes, but he was specifically talking about the portal installation
Times Square,
where it
yeah.
was in Times Square and it went through Dublin and it got shut down because in OnlyFans.
Oh, yeah, that way Kieran, he could see us. We could show
Yeah.
up at the portal and wave to him.
For sure. We'd be like, hey guys, we need to take over this portal for an hour for our comic book podcast.
Yeah,
like,
so
no
Kieran
problem.
could be a part of it.
We could just do it from like 4 a.m. or whatever. The live show coming soon this summer.
Got to stop promising dates. Easy Reader says,
can we
talk about what we're not good at? Would that be okay? Can we do that next?
See,
Easy Reader says, are you looking forward to any video game releases?
Well, you know what? I have a small answer here. I think I'm going to buy the Paper Mario that's about to come out.
Ah,
What?
okay.
Is that a cross between Paperboy and Mario?
Not at all. I've never played. I haven't played any of the Paper Mario games, but I'm ready to dive in. I've been solo parenting for about a month, and I've got like almost a month left. And after that, I'm going to really vanish.
Are you halfway exactly, or
almost?
Oh, that's rough, dude. Because you're having a hard time, and you're not even halfway. That's tough.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, this is definitely not a looking forward video game release. I'm playing through Arkham City with my son, having a great time doing that.
That's fun.
That's obviously like 10 years old, but that's where I'm at. And when we're done, the thing that I'm looking forward to is then playing Arkham Knight. So there you go. Edward Doherty says, I recently read a Brubaker comics about a fictional comic book artist who is a master of the art form that never made a masterpiece. Do you think there are any creators like that? Jim Lee, maybe?
Ooh.
Ooh.
I definitely think
Hot take.
I definitely think that there's masters of the art form. I don't know that they necessarily need to make a masterpiece. I think that what they do is enough, but I hear what you're saying.
I don't know, man. Jim Lee, like, if you're talking about a long run comic, maybe not. Like, I don't think Batman Hush is the best thing ever, but
that first book, though, that first graphic novel is so good, though.
Right, but what I was going to say about that is, like, my son, who is 9, picked this up and was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever read in my entire life.
That's the first thing I thought of when I read number 1.
But in terms of Jim Lee, like, the cover of X-Men number 1 is unimpeachable. So if you're talking about masterpieces, I know we're focusing on the Jim Lee of it all right now, but, like, it depends on what scale you're talking about here, I guess.
Well, I guess I would say, like, in the comic book medium, like a masterpiece is where you have it's your story as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe that's what the question is about. And it is interesting that Jim Lee has never, to my knowledge, really told a story. He's just, done the art on a lot of stories.
Well, it is in.
But I think that's okay. Like his medium his medium is art. So like to judge what his masterpiece is, I think you need to look at pieces of art. There's also like I feel like it was New 52 is interconnecting covers of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Fantastic. Like there's so much stuff that he's done that is so good.
His like hiding pieces of art at a comic convention.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But without calling out anybody's names, because I absolutely do not want to do that, there are plenty of people that are like jobbers, and that's okay. There are people who come in and they write good, solid comics and keep going, and there's nothing that are like, this is the top tier best of the best. But you need the top tier best of the best, and then you also need the people that are going to deliver content on a monthly basis. And I know we don't like the word content and whatever, but like I'm literally talking about people that are making sure they're meeting their financial commitments at Marvel and DC, because otherwise those companies would shut down. That's important too.
I also want to say that, like, certain things are masterpieces to certain people. You know what I mean? Like, I think Murder Falcon is a masterpiece. Some people might disagree. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But I agree with you. I think that is. I guess I like the distinction you're making, Alex. But I think Pete is right. Like even someone who is known for just like being a master at hitting the deadlines and making very good art, like someone like Mark Bagley. Like I think Mark Bagley definitely has a masterpiece.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Saga Fiona Staples. I mean, tell me that's not a masterpiece.
But I would argue that
nobody was arguing about that.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks that.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad I'm not crazy.
No, but like Mark Bagley, Ultimate Spider-Man, I think is pretty clear to point to. There's probably other things as well. This is why, like, there are things that are great I think Pete is right in terms of what do you personally determine a masterpiece. There's different scales there because one person's masterpiece is another person's like, I didn't like that.
And on the flip, like the Paul Pope hand-drawn matte piece that he did when he was at the restaurant I was working at once is my masterpiece of his. Yeah. And he would never be like, in an interview, be like, my masterpiece? I had 3 glasses
I was
of wine
once at a restaurant.
Placemat. But that's my masterpiece.
Yeah, that's true. Just a clarification before we wrap up here. Easy Reader says, I was wondering if you were going to play the WB Multiverse game. This is Multiverses, which is basically down to the sounds and effects, as far as I've seen, Super Smash Bros., but for WB characters.
What, the different frogs?
No, it's like
there's
only one.
Just Michigan J.
Well, there's different versions of that frog over the years.
You're saying like Top Hat, no Top Hat?
Yeah.
How many action figures do you have?
Yeah, there's like 2 versions of the frog. There's the frog that's like, and doesn't do anything. And there's a frog who keeps dancing every time I look and nobody sees it.
Oh, man, that's got to be so
say, Alex,
annoying.
I know you're a believer and originalist when it comes to the WB Frog. The entire network was built around a truly dark cartoon, Warner Brothers cartoon.
One of the darkest.
It's insane.
It's so good.
I love it. I love everything about the WB programming and promos and everything like that. But I agree with you. The fact that they were like, who's our mascot? Michigan J. Frog.
Well, very strange. Also,
crazy.
it's about how like entertainment is a lie. The original cartoon, and like then they made a network around television.
This is, speaking of entertainment is a lie, same thing with the Multiverses game. If you ever wanted to watch Superman kill the Iron Giant, here's your game for you. It's crazy. Granted, I absolutely will try it out if it's on a mobile platform or something. I have not looked into it, but I don't know. It's weird. It's like, it feels to me, WB very similar to like a Netflix is not a thing where I'm like, oh yeah, I want to watch Paul Atreides and Michigan J. Frog and Bugs Bunny hang out. That's cool to me. That's not cool to me. That's weird to me. Versus, and Netflix is the same thing. They keep pushing like, it's everything you want. The Stranger Things character and Squid Game and Love is Blind and all your favorites. I'm like, nope, those are different audiences. What are you talking about? It's not a Disney where it feels like it's this whole extended world. They've done a good job of it. And that's what they're trying to do with this game. And I don't think it's going to work, but whatever.
I'm into the BritBox multiverse game where a bunch of sort of sad detectives fight each other with words.
Yeah, Michael Eamon says sounds like Ready Player One. Yes, exactly, 100%.
It certainly does.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is trivia, and for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right, this is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. It's an opportunity to win $25 free to Midtown Comics online. Because if you had $25, you'd probably want to get some comics. You know what I mean?
It makes a lot of sense. Perhaps the Archie book that comes out tomorrow.
Ooh, that's a good.
You guys going to pick that up?
Yeah. Oh my God, those spread pages are unbelievable.
Pete, did you hear? This is some news from today while we're waiting for somebody to say me for the trivia.
Yeah, raise your hand for trivia.
Jonathan Hickman, Greg Capullo doing a 5-issue Wolverine mini-series that's going to have red band versions only in stores. I immediately thought of you.
Hey, Pablo putting his hand up.
Hey.
Pete's going to live in front of the comic book store in his small town that he lives in. You get your comics at a Long John Silver, right, Pete?
Yeah, that's correct.
I didn't see you there. Somebody, by the way, I just want to mention, hit us up on Twitter. I was like, link the Red Lobster closing thing. It was like, got to cash in those gift cards. And I was like, buddy, we're talking about Long John Silver.
It's close.
Different seafood chain.
Oh, slightly different.
All right, let's do this. Pablo's in. Let's go.
Great.
All right, here we go. Today's trivia is on comic book artist and a small nod to the legend, Diane Ford. R.I.P. to the stand-up legend. Please listen to all 3 options before making your selection. Here we go, Pablo. Question number 1. This amazing artist has won a lot of awards. But did you know she also did the interiors on the Jonah Hex one-shot? Who is it? Is it A, Fiona Staples, B, geez, the new guy sure does a lot of ecstasy, C, Cliff Rolls?
Good stuff. Wow, the answering the Red Lobster, when I saw a news article announcing the bankruptcy, and it said like they're blaming it on their misguided endless shrimp promotion. I was like, oh man, when you're in the game, you're gonna game that big, you're gonna lose that game.
Pablo, you were correct. It is A. Question number 2. This Brazilian artist is known for Radiant Black, but also worked on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Who is it? Is it A, Marcelo Costa, B, don't bury the lead, D, give me someone who will see, bury the look?
While we're waiting for Pablo to answer, I will clarify from a news perspective that, yes, the Endless Shrimp deal did lose them $11 million, which is bonkers. But the actual reason that Red Lobster is going bankrupt is a company bought them, sold the land the restaurants were on, and then rented them back their own land. And we're like, I don't know why we're losing money, man. Which is crazy.
Great.
Crazy.
Just
that seems insane. You were correct. It is A. Here we go. Last one. This Japanese artist worked on one of the greatest comics of all time, I Killed Giants. Who is it? Is it A, Ken Nimura? B, it seems like you're just looking around your bathroom making up names. C, Chris Colgate.
Michael Tillian clarifies, be specific, it was a hedge fund, talk about the devil. Yes, it was in fact a hedge fund that did that. Every single time a hedge fund was like, hey, let's take over this company, you're like, goodbye, company.
Yeah, it's over. Well, they're not going to do a good job. They don't care about
why do we
Red
allow
Lobster.
this? I don't understand.
Pablo, you were correct. It is A.
Wow, there we go. Congratulations,
yours.
Pablo. You are getting a gift card to Red Lobster. Please shoot us an email.
Fast, baby.
Cash fast. comicbookclublive@gmail.com. Pete, what was the secret movie?
Of course, we're talking about the 2010 thriller Deadly Closure.
Of course we were.
Yeah. Now, ironic on this Red Lobster talk that the movie was Deadly Closure.
Yeah.
There you go. Great tie-in. Good script, guys, when we planned this. As we all know, comic books are cool and we love them. Pete, what are you looking forward to that's coming out?
What a stack we have. Sensational She-Hulk number 8 and Something is Killing the Children number 37. I mean, come on!
Justin, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I got to shout out Local Man number 10. Shouts to the Eisner nom for this great book that we've been hyping up for so long. Pete,
much love.
Hey, Pete, shut up. Then I want to shout out Alan Scott's The Green Lantern number 6. This series coming to a close. I got to say, this has been such a great surprise from having a story with great superheroics while at the same time just exploring a character and telling a great emotional story at the same time. And Archie Comics Judgment Day number 1. Let's go.
Yep. All that stuff you guys mentioned, I was very curious to check out Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, the final issue of that, because why not? It's ridiculous. Nightwing kicking off the final arc from Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo.
Heartbreaker.
And I'll also give a shout out to Immortal Thor number 11, which is one of the weirdest books. Well, just looking forward to it. I guess we'll see what happens. But it's an intriguing title where weird stuff happens every issue. And I don't know what it's going to be. And I like having it shaken up a little bit. You know what I'm talking about?
That's why I'm surprised that you're saying that, because it has been so it's like every issue is like, oh, this is something completely different.
Yes. There you go. I just want to shake it up in the comic book store and shake it up in the bedroom. And a couple of people we want to thank before we go. Aubrey Sitterson and Megan Hutchison.
Yes.
Check out Archie Comics Judgment Day. That is coming out tomorrow. Vera Brosgol. Check out Plain Jane and the Mermaid. Out now everywhere from First Second. Next week, Josh Hicks is going to be here to talk about Hotelator, Luxury Class Defense and Hospitality Unit. Also, Carl, I'm going to mangle these names. Carl Scacciatato and David Scacciatato talk about The Heart That Fed. They are a father-son who wrote a graphic novel together. That should be very cool to talk to them about. Comic Book Club News, our daily news podcast, Monday through Friday. Check that out every day. Marvel Vision, our Marvel podcast, just finished up talking about X-Men 97, and we'll see. We'll talk about other stuff. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support this show and all the shows we do. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Android, Spotify, or the app of your choice at Comic Book Live on Twitter/X, Comic Book Club Live on Instagram and TikTok, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, we'll see you at the Comic Book Club.
Yeah, shouts to Pete's Internet. Going strong.
Take care of yourself.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.